Okay, welcome back to the Framingham Makerspace Persistent Division POI. So we had already connected our power leads, plus and ground. Now we're going to connect the clock and data leads. So I stripped and tinned my 30 gauge silicone insulated superflex wire. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to connect directly to the pins on the LED chip. Because that's going to be stronger than if we try to connect to the flex. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. Maybe I'm not. Zoom back out so it stays in focus. Alright, thought I was. Sorry about that. Okay, so I looked up the data sheet for this an APA 102 chip, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this corner of the chip has a little notch cut in it. I put a little black mark on this first one just so it's a little easier to see. That indicates pin 1. So we have pin 1 here, pin 2, pin 3. So pin 1, I'm turning around to look at it, is data input. Pin 2 is clock input. Pin 3 is ground. Pin 4 over here is VCC, which is our 5 volts. Pin 5 is the clock output, and pin 6 is the data output. So we're going to connect to the data input and the clock input, and again we want to connect on the first LED, and we want to make sure these arrows are going in this direction because we need to be on the input, and it's going to transfer the clock and data up the chain. So get a little solder here. Now I may end up having to switch the tip on this iron to something a little bit bigger, or smaller I mean. We just have to see how that goes. And it's a little tight in there because I've already got the, unfortunately, because I already have the ground lead on, and what I should have done, so when you do it, put the ground lead on after you put the data and clock in. So one of them I'm going to tip up like this. This is the, I think it's the clock. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this ground lead off because it's going to be in the way. So just heat that up a little bit. Take that off. Okay. That'll give us room to get in there, and we'll put it on afterwards. So oops. Okay, so this one I'm going to put on like this, and I'm just putting the wire aimed in this direction so it stays out of the way of the other one. Okay, that's on. Now I'm going to do the other one. Pin 2. Okay. Alright, so we're going to do the other one here. I'm going to aim this wire this way. No, you're coming through on the video. That's we're having a POV POI meeting in the background. Okay, that didn't work too well yet. More solder on here. And we'll see what this does. Sorry, this is taking so long, folks. Okay. Alright, let me just get on there. And you do have to make sure you don't short these pins out, obviously. Okay. Alright, I'll have to look at that under a microscope and see if I got a good enough solder joint, but there we have pin 1, so we can just kind of route that crossing around like that. So pin 1 was data input, and pin 2 is clock input, and what I'm going to do is put a little mark on the data line, little black Sharpie mark on both ends. And the reason for that is because I didn't have two different color wires, and if I don't do this, when I get everything all jammed in, when I go to put it together, it is really hard to tell who's who. So doing that now will hopefully save me later. And then I'm just going to stick my ground wire back on. And this may be one where I'm going to stick the ground wire actually up a second. I'm just going to take some solder, melt that solder there. It was on that early one. Maybe I won't. I'm going to move it up, so I'm soldering it away from the clock and data pins. There's no reason to be that close. So I'm going to stick it up here instead. And that will keep it out of the way, hopefully. Moving everything around and making a mess of my bench here. And I need a little more solder here. There we go. Okay, that looks like it melted a little better. Okay, that looks like it's on. So now we've got our ground lead back on. So, whoops, as I drag it away, we should be good. Ground, power, clock, and data. All on there. We will test this out before we actually button the whole thing up. Sometimes you'll get a bad LED. If that's the case, you can just, if it's in the middle of the strip, you can just cut out the bad one and solder in, cut a good one out and solder it back in and replace it. I've done that before. So there we go. Until next time.